Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. And we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons driving a critical intellectual evolution change in humanity, specifically through language and vocabulary. All right, so there's this change. So one D&D is here, and it is huge, and it is popping off, and every D&D commentator on YouTube is bringing forward discussion, right? And one of the changes, right? This was highlighted by Sly Flourish. I've been listening to him carefully. Sly Flourish is incredibly important in the Dungeons & Dragons community. He wrote an article, and then he staged that article directly to Ray Winninger. And because he has so much import in the community, has so much respect in the community, he was able to get an article that he wrote that he tweeted to Ray Winninger. Ray Winninger, the design lead for Dungeons & Dragons right now, answered him back directly. And Sly Flourish said, hey, you can go answer that cute little that cute little survey, but you can just do something significant and tweet it right at the design team. And he was saying flat out, Twitter is, there's no question, Twitter is a forge where Dungeons & Dragons is built, and where the D&D community is very directly telling the design team what they want, right? So you should fill out the survey, right, to see what you want in the 2023 PHB, in the changes that arrive in 2023 for the Player's Handbook. There's just one Player's Handbook. It has changes over years, but there's just one Player's Handbook. Editions are dead. Editions are the only place editions live anymore is in the shriveled hearts of people who desperately want to clutch to division, right, and don't want to accept peace. And there are quite a few out there, trust and believe. All right, but they are dead. They're gone, right? They're just figments of imagination at this point. There are no Dungeons & Dragons editions. There's just one Player's Handbook, and it's had changes over many years. And the best way to understand those changes is like a note in a song, right? A song has different notes, and those notes come one after another, and each one changes the song, but there's beauty in the change. And that's where we are right now, right? One Dungeons & Dragons. No one player handbook that's ever been printed is less welcome or less valuable or less powerful than any other, right? And we're going to see changes come to the Player's Handbook in 2023, and it's the same for the other two core rule books as well, right? And it's just the next note in the song, and the song is beautiful. That's the best way to understand one Dungeons & Dragons. We have 15 core books now, not 3, right? And you as a dungeon master can bring whatever dungeon master guide you like, and you as a player can bring whatever. The Dungeon Master Guide is for Dungeon Masters. The Monster Manual and the Player's Handbook are for players, right? So basically, we're in this beautiful moment. So here's what happened. Recently, there was this there's change that came up, and they talked about in one D&D, the product, not the overall arching statement, the overall arching change, which has already arrived, right? One D&D is forever, right? For the Muggles, it's just a product. For the understanding Dungeon Master, one D&D is a forever statement that drives us into a new era of peace, right? So they talked about D20. They talked about a D20 test, right? So what is a D20 test? Well, a D20 test is an ability check, and that includes a skill check. Okay, so you have an ability check, you have saving throws, and you have an attack roll. But now they can say D20 test. Okay, and they're just saying, hey, this is the thing, it's D20 test, and we could say, hey, you get a +2 to the D20 test, to any D, and that's this broad sweeping category that when you say you get a +2 to D20 tests, if this circumstance arrives, it's really broad, really powerful, really exciting for players, right? Now, here's the issue, right? A lot of people are like, why do you need to say D20 test? Just say all the words before, right? And this is and you'll hear this a lot. People will say a semantic difference. And I want you to understand something. Dungeons & Dragons is one, I will say it right now. I think Dungeons & Dragons is the most powerful secular force in the world today. It is there's nothing that comes close. Now, on the sacred side, I think there's a lot of people of faith who understand that sacred elements are far more powerful and valuable than secular ones. But I'm an evangelical Christian. I'm Christian. I'm going to heaven, right? Like, but there's a lot of people who aren't. They don't sign on to faith, right? And so basically, but for the secular world, for the lost, which that's the majority of people, secular things are incredibly important. And I really believe, more than anything on this planet right now, Dungeons & Dragons is driving humanity in a secular way toward a bigger, brighter intellectual evolution and an emotional evolution. Let's talk about the intellectual today. So when you do something like saying, hey, D20 test, right? First of all, you're talking to people who already understood ability checks, saving throws, and attack rolls, which each one of them is freighted and has complexity. And you're saying, hey, I demand more from you. Understand this, right? Drive your knowledge deeper. You cannot quit, right? And it just like, and the thing is, it says, we, a dungeon master, the words semantic are meaningless to dungeon masters. We have absolutely tolerance for every nuance, for every small change. And if you've noticed, Dungeons & Dragons is intimately connected with Magic the Gathering. Sly Flourish, great guy. He doesn't understand everything that's happening in Dungeons & Dragons. He thought it was an accident that MTG and D&D were mixed. And that's because he's never seen the MTG x D&D notebook. A clarion call to everybody saying, no, Magic the Gathering and D&D are not two products. They're one. They're one, right? And that's why they were intermixed. Because every single Magic card that is ever printed connects every single thing on those cards directly to Dungeons & Dragons. Dominaria and Forgotten Realms have been connected in 100 ways already, right? So if you print it on a Magic card, it's part of the Dungeons & Dragons world. That's the way it is now, right? And they keep telling us again and again, these are one product. They say it in 100 different ways, right? And Magic the Gathering is the most complex game that has ever been created. And so Dungeons & Dragons is saying, as a dungeon master, you never, ever, ever stop caring about the changes of the word or the power of the changes of words or the power of words, right? And this is how we're going to build a space elevator, right? The complexity needed to build a space elevator from Earth to orbit is massively intense, right? And the hardening, the intellectual hardening, right? The intellectual evolution humanity needs to burst into the stars is driven by Dungeons & Dragons saying, hey, we see you. We're talking to the confident, the charismatic, and the intelligence of you, the intelligent ones of you, and we're forging you and pushing you farther so that humanity is pushed farther. And you're like, oh, Scott, it's not connected. Dude, wake up, dudette. Last week, Dungeons & Dragons literally sent an object into space. This is not me just squawking and giving ideas. This is no longer abstract. It's turned into action, and we are doing the assertion. Dungeons & Dragons is literally involved in the space race, right? Dungeons & Dragons is the most powerful secular force on this earth. It is forging intellectual evolution. It is forging emotional evolution for humanity. It's happening. It's real. And if you open your eyes, you will see it, right? It seems like two simple words, D20 test, but it's saying, no, break your bonds. Drive your intellect farther. Every word matters. And in this world, the creation of tangible things means nothing. It is a task for robots, and no human should ever lay their hands on building a physical thing again. We are a species of intellect, confidence, and charisma, and we will take the stars. D20 test is the next step in human intellectual and emotional evolution. Actually, it's only on the intellectual side. Emotional evolution is on other stuff, which I've talked about and I'll continue to talk about. Open your eyes to see what Dungeons & Dragons very clearly is, right? It's absolutely critical for American culture, and whatever we build here in American culture, our the worst, most dedicated dictators will have it in their homes next week, because that's the way the world rolls, right? All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please, humble opinion, please consider like subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.